We're going to move now over to Australia and New Zealand. So, Andrew, I believe you've got some slides to share with us about your markets.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Cavallaro. I'm the co-founder and director of Helm. We're a sales, marketing, PR representation agency in Australia, covering the Australian New Zealand market. I'm based in Brisbane, but we've got offices in Brisbane and Sydney, and some of our European clients include the likes of Eurail and Tour España, the Spain tourism board. So we look after them for Aussies and Kiwis. But just to cover off a bit about our market, so Australia and New Zealand, we're often forgotten about because the other end of the world, we're a relatively small population. Our two markets combined, there's only 30 million of us, but we're big travelers and we're big spenders. And when you look at some of the data around the number of millionaires that exist within Australia and New Zealand, the salaries that are paid in our market, Australians and New Zealanders are highly paid. They get long holiday leave each year, and they love traveling. So they're cashed up, they're ready to travel. And actually pre-COVID, Australia globally was the Australian market were the 6th biggest travel spenders in the world. So definitely a market still to keep on your radar. So in terms of the key areas that we look after within our market, we very much focus on the 3 major population centres of Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. But we do also do a bit of peripheral work within Perth and Auckland as well. For those of you that aren't familiar, the only direct flights between our market and Europe are via Perth. So you've got the Qantas service direct into London, and Qantas also have a direct service into Rome. And next year they will be launching a direct flight into Paris, which is very exciting. But for most Aussies and Kiwis, we're very used to the one-stop 24-hour journey that goes via the Middle East or Southeast Asia over to Europe. So long distances don't really make a difference to us. We're used to that if we want to go anywhere in the world, basically. So just a little bit on some outbound statistics from our market. We're currently sitting at about 80% roughly across Australia and New Zealand of pre-COVID numbers. It did take us a little while to catch up. We only really started traveling from the middle of last year. We've had a lot of airline capacity constraints to this part of the world, which has meant much higher airfares. It took a little bit of time for our market to get traveling again, but it's booming now. And the great news about Europe is that Europe is ahead of the curve. So for Australians traveling over to Europe, we're sort of roughly about 90% of pre-COVID numbers. And so we'll exceed 2 million travelers from our market going to Europe within the first few months of next year. And all predictions at the moment are that we will exceed pre-COVID numbers in 2024, which is very exciting. No surprises of where Aussies and Kiwis are traveling to at the moment. It's very much focused on Asia Pacific. The UK ranks as the 4th most popular destination for both Australia and New Zealand. But when we look at Europe specifically, obviously the UK is up there, Italy and France because of those direct services, and obviously key destinations. Greece and Germany rank very highly, as does Spain. And I was looking at some numbers yesterday, and Portugal is skyrocketing in terms of year-on-year growth and popularity as well. So Aussies and Kiwis are starting to venture out, which is a bit more, which is great to see. In terms of our economy, we're trundling along quite well, actually. New Zealand technically, they thought was entering a recession in the middle of the year. They readjusted their numbers and it's actually, their economy is performing quite well now. Australia, most analysts are saying that we'll avoid recession. The only thing we've got to watch out is what happens with the US and China, because that very much impacts our economy. But overall, unemployment is at record lows. Inflation is starting to come back down. We weren't as impacted as other countries. We still have a cost of living crisis, as we talk about here. But generally speaking, the economy is doing relatively well. When we do look at the cost of living crisis and inflationary pressures, and obviously the impact of airfares, to give you an example, airfares on average are getting close to double what they were pre-COVID. They are starting to come down now as more capacity comes online. But in terms of the key segments that aren't being affected, those aged 55, they're constantly being called out in the media as being the cause of inflation in this market. Higher interest rates mean that they're getting much stronger returns on their savings, and they're the ones that are spending way more than what they were before. So in terms of key markets to look out for, that over 55 empty nester market, they're traveling in droves. The youth market, 18 to 24-year-olds, they're still spending the same level of money on discretionary items like travel as what they have been for the past few years. The only difference is that they're not renting and they're not purchasing homes. They're staying at home with mum and dad. So they're still spending, but their spending priorities have shifted. The segment that is most affected at the moment is the families market, and then obviously those renting and those aged 25 to 34. They're the ones that are starting to feel the pinch a bit more with higher interest rates, and they're cutting back on discretionary spending. So if you're going after the empty nester market, if you're going after the youth market, you're fine. It's probably just the families market you probably need to be aware of as being impacted at the moment. Like I said, they're predicting that next year will exceed pre-COVID numbers for outbound travel, and Europe is ahead of the curve already with that. Some data recently came out from Webjet, which is a big OTA within the Australian market, that in September, they saw a 136% increase on bookings for Europe next year, which is a huge boost. I think everyone's got the FOMO factor from seeing all the Instagram content of everyone being in Europe this summer. So people are starting to book early, which is fantastic. Key cities that are performing really, really strongly for Webjet include, key cities like London, Paris, Athens, Rome, Frankfurt, Amsterdam, Barcelona, Copenhagen, Dublin, and Manchester. And some interesting trends, not just coming out from Webjet, but other indicators as well. Couples and solo travel is the big theme at the moment. It's what everyone is talking about. So if you've got product that is tailored specifically to solo travelers, definitely leverage that for the Australian, New Zealand market. Capacity constraints with airfares and airlines, it is getting better. We had a bit of an issue a couple of months ago where Qatar wanted to increase a whole load of services into Australia and New Zealand. It got blocked by the government for protection reasons with Qantas, but it is getting better. It's all over the media now, and the government is realizing that they have to address this issue. And so they are being a bit more accommodating and encouraging of more airlines coming into our market. A lot of talk at the moment about Turkish Airlines hopefully next year launching a new direct service to Sydney and Melbourne as well, which will open up even more access via that part of the world as well. Key themes for our market, some similarities with the Southeast Asian market, but some key themes that are coming through in the data and what the media are really focusing on here. Slow travel, off the beaten path adventures. Australians and New Zealanders, when they go to Europe, they don't just do one country, apart from the UK, which is a bit of an anomaly, but they don't tend to just do one country. But what we're seeing is maybe doing fewer countries, slowing down, getting off the beaten path a little bit more. Conscious travel, and for us, that's not just about sustainable travel, but also about the impact on communities as well. So community-based travel is a really big theme here. Connection with wellness and wilderness. It's not just about spa breaks. It's how do we reconnect with nature, and how do we have those more authentic cultural immersion experiences as well. Solo travel, like I said, particularly amongst females. So single women, divorced women, it's a big trend. It's what all the media are talking about at the moment. Food and drinks always been a big trend for our market, but there's a big prediction and a big focus on wine and spirit-based travel for next year. So any product around that, really make sure that you leverage that for our market. And it's not just about Michelin-starred restaurant or fine dining experiences. Aussies and Kiwis, they're really looking for those authentic and affordable food and drink travel experiences as well. And then, of course, pop culture inspired, whether it's TV series, film, music, fashion, that is obviously driving inspiration as well. Just to touch very, very quickly on how the trade works within our market, the vast majority of travel is still booked by travel agents out of Australia and New Zealand. It's 70 to 80% of travel is still booked by travel agents. 40% of travel agents in our market lost their jobs during COVID, and it's taking them a long time to really rebuild those teams. What we're seeing is the consumer demand is there. The travel agencies aren't keeping up with that demand. They're recruiting at rapid rates, but they're recruiting a lot of team members that just don't have that experience or that destination knowledge. So we've had to really shift our approach in terms of how we build up that product and destination knowledge, and how we encourage this whole new breed of travel agents to be selling and promoting, obviously our clients. And also seeing a really big shift. It was already starting pre-COVID, the shift from traditional bricks and mortar, retail stores, to hybrid home-based models that is really been elevated due to COVID as well. So how we engage those agents has really changed. And then just finally, the market here is very much centered on major conglomerates. You've got the likes of Flight Centre and Hello World, which really dominate our market across their different retail, wholesale, and tour operator brands. You've got a few other mid-tier players as well, but then there's a really big list of small independent wholesalers, retail groups, and tour operators that we work closely with. In general, Aussies and Kiwis prefer to support small businesses, but this is just to give you a little bit of a lay of the land of how that trade distribution works within our market. And that's it for me.